Good morning. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you, new and returning guests, including our partner IRI and its members, back to Case Western Reserve University, at least virtually. Last year, Case Western Reserve University started a strategic partnership with IRI, and together we started this Digital Futures Conference. We felt that the digital transformation of legacy companies is the next frontier of digital revolution in our economy. And we both shared that there is no platform where these companies can come together to learn from each other's experience. No sales pitch, no Amazon or Uber stories. It is the stories of industrial companies with the physical assets and resources, legacy workforces, and aging infrastructure who are trying to change the way they operate. It's not to become Google of this and Amazon of that, but a new kind of digital transformation grounded in the reality of legacy companies. And that's why we started this Digital Futures Conference. And despite it was the very first year, we had tremendously positive responses from participants. So as soon as the conference was over, it was very easy for us to decide that we're going to do it again and make it an annual event. So we started our conference planning back in February. We were concerned about the capacity of our venue on our campus. But little did we know that the capacity was the least of our concern. Well, as we all know, we had this COVID-19 pandemic. Just like everybody else, we had to decide what we were going to do with this pandemic situation. At one point, we were thinking about canceling the whole thing this year and maybe just do it next year. But then we realized, after all, we are the Digital Futures Conference. And if we cannot do it digitally, we must just pack up and go home altogether. So we decided that we're going to pivot to a virtual format. And through this amazing collaboration and partnership with all of our planning team, now we are able to bring this conference to you in this virtual format. And I hope you would enjoy this new format, at least for this year. What was just fascinating for me is that while we made the switch to a virtual conference very reluctantly, I might say, as we started looking into the detailed plan, we discovered that there are actually some things that we could never done, if we were doing in a traditional sense. And we're doing something that was impossible before. For example, we have speakers and audience from literally all over the world, from South Korea to Copenhagen and many different parts in the United States. So digital transformation is something that every organization, whether they are for-profit, non-for-profit, public, private, large, small, everyone is talking about it. And COVID has only accelerated the trend. Just as COVID is a bigger threat to those who had an underlying health conditions, the economic disruption due to COVID-19 is posing particularly uneven threats to those organizations who have underlying conditions. Most legacy businesses that were solely relying on traditional business models struggled, while others in the same sector minimized the damage. For example, while Pizza Hut and California Kitchen suffered a massive 37% drop in their revenue, and both of them ended up filing bankruptcy protection. But Domino's Pizza in the same industrial sector didn't have that problem. During the same time period, its sales actually went up by 16%. So what was the difference? Obviously, the industrial sector does not determine the fate of the company in this pandemic era. It's because even before the pandemic, Domino's Pizza was digitizing its core business. It was perfecting the online order and delivery systems. When the pandemic happened, it was ready. It was ready to run. One of the most popular features of their app is what they called zero-click ordering. You know what it does? You can just simply open the app and hold it for 10 seconds and do nothing. It already knows what is your favorite order, and then it'll just order it for you. It's done. Okay? So, of course, you cannot do it without digital technology. The smartphone, personalization, AI-based analytics are all the things that you need to make it happen. Yet you cannot possibly do such radical innovation without a large network of physical stores throughout the nation. Domino's has over 6,000 stores throughout the country. So the Domino's case shows that when you are ready with the digital technology, you could really take advantage of you can thrive even during this pandemic era. COVID-19 also has radically accelerated the time horizon of much needed strategic transformation for legacy companies. Digital transformation is no longer a long-term strategic issue. It is a clear and present challenge that is upon us now. If you're not doing right now what you thought that you would need to do in 10 years time frame, in your pre-pandemic mindset, you will be in a big trouble. With pandemic, you don't have the luxury of thinking about digital futures anymore. You must be thinking about the digital present. If not, there will be no futures for you. So, despite the urgent strategic necessity of the digital transformation, many traditional firms still struggle to understand exactly what it means to them to have a digital transformation, and they still struggle how to do it. Many organizations still approach digital transformation as fundamentally technology exercise, and they think that they can just bring technology on the top of their traditional business model. Until recently, digital transformation was often considered as a periphery activity that does not really change fundamental architecture of the business. Even those organizations that embrace digital transformation early often lack a coherent organization-wide vision as to what exactly is digital transformation that enables different groups in the organization to work together. Instead, many of these organizations just suffer from incoherent, fragmented, and uncoordinated activities under a broad and ambiguous idea of digital transformation. Other traditional organizations that successfully launch digital transformation initiatives are often stuck in a small-scale pilot study. We call it pilot syndrome. Often led by a small band of a interdisciplinary innovative team with UX designers and software engineers and AI expert and some outside consultant. These pilot projects show promising future, some potentials, but they never grow into a scale where they can actually become the future of the company. What is lacking in these traditional firms is a clear understanding of what digital transformation means for them. They need a concrete and specific launching pad to start their journey. And of course, such an understanding necessarily embraces technology, but it must go beyond technology. Technology in digital transformation is where it begins, not where it ends. So, an effective digital transformation initiative must begin by asking three fundamental strategic questions. These questions deal with the three distinct but interrelated architectures that form the DNA of a firm. By asking these questions and answering these questions, a successful digital transformation must be an attempt to re-architecting the company's DNA. So the three questions: why, what, and how. So, a firm is a systematic, organized, and sustained effort to provide valuable solutions with scale to change intolerable situations that are found in this world. Therefore, a successful firm must discover an intolerable situation before others do, and then design a powerful and effective solution to change that situation. And then finally, build and manage a system that can provide a solution to the society in a sustainable and scalable manner. Digital transformation demands firms to reckon with these three fundamental questions. Not all firms need to think about these three questions all at the same time. And not all firms will be able to come up with unique and effective answers to these questions either. But a firm's ability to ask and answer these questions will undoubtedly shape the fundamental architecture of the firm. That is the very DNA of the company. And the changes in the DNA or the lack thereof will determine the life or death of the firm. The reason that digital transformation is so important is that it is one of those very rare technologies that can fundamentally affect all three of these questions. So now let's take a look at these three questions in detail, one at a time, and how digital disruption is shaping these questions. First, why? All companies must ask, why am I in the business, and why do I need a new solution that I need to introduce to the marketplace? The answer to this fundamental question is a reflection of how the firm and its leaders see the world and their understanding of the humanity and science. Although we might be living in the same world, we do not necessarily experience the world in the same way. What is a perfectly fine situation for some people can be utterly and unacceptable and intolerable for others. Depending on the way you see the world and depending on your humanistic and scientific understanding, some firms might say that, we do not need a new solution, while others think that this is totally, desperately, we need a new solution. Let me give you an example. When COVID-19 happened, when many countries introduced a contact tracing solutions using digital technology. So countries like China, South Korea, Singapore, they all implemented digital solutions that utilizes personal information, including their health record, financial transactions, and physical mobility data. And they use the data to find out where the virus is going and then shut down certain parts of the country. And they were able to use that to track down those who contracted the virus and then isolate them very quickly. So it worked, But these technologies require the collection of very detailed, massive amount of personal data in a centralized server and used by the public health authorities. And then in some countries, they routinely publicize the information about those people who have viruses or the locations, businesses that are affected by the viruses. Now, clearly, as I said, these solutions appear to be successful in these countries. And one may take a comfort in knowing that at least we have a solution that addresses this market needs. However, if you believe that the individual's civil liberty and the privacy is as important as the value of protecting the public health, you may think that this is not an acceptable situation. This is actually intolerable situation because we have to violate the very basic tenet of personal privacy. So two factors influence one's ability to perceive the given situation intolerable. The first one is that one's ability to see the world and then discover intolerable situation, it is a direct reflection of the company and its leaders' worldview and humanistic value. If the leaders of the company have a conviction that an individual's civil liberty and the privacy have an utmost priority, the current given situation is not an acceptable one. A sharp understanding of the issue of privacy and the ability to articulate why the failure of protecting individuals' privacy is a problem can create a powerful starting point of a new solution and creating a new market. And this begins with a question of why. In a similar vein, many digital native companies' inability or unwillingness to recognize the problem of abusive practice of using personal data in many of digital services is increasingly becoming their liability. These companies have repeatedly failed to see the lack of privacy protection in the digital service is a intolerable situation. And that failure is actually creating an opportunity for other companies who have a different worldview and different value. So here, the privacy is not just a matter of ethics. It is a market failure that opens up a new opportunity that didn't exist before. And a firm's worldview and its humanistic value is not something that can be easily changed or copied overnight. A firm can imitate someone else's strategy or product or technology. And they may even pretend to have certain value, which it doesn't really believe in. Maybe they can do it for a while, but such efforts cannot be sustained in the long run. This is precisely why the answer to the why question of digital transformation has such an important and strategic implication. The question that legacy firms must ask when they start digital transformation is why? Why are we in the business, and what is it that we believe in? The second part of the why question is a firm's ability to discover intolerable situation through the lens of its understanding of science and technology. That is, even if the current situation is intolerable from its worldview, if there are no technical solutions to change the present situation, then the firm's recognition of the intolerable situation simply is meaningless. It's not practical. So let's go back to the COVID-19 digital contact tracing example. So here, even if one is considering the current situation with the decentralized digital contact tracing undesirable and intolerable, if he or she doesn't know how to do that in other way, it's almost meaningless to raise the question of why. Now, they may just say, well, this is pretty bad, but what else? Well, what else can we do? It is what it is, right? However, if someone is aware of a potential privacy-preserving analytics that can be used for this digital contact tracing without violating the individual's data privacy, then the current situation is really undoubtedly intolerable. So a firm's ability to ask a powerful question of why offers an opportunity for the company to identify the market failures that others have not yet recognized. While all other companies are thinking that this is fine, this is perfectly fine, those companies who can ask the question of why in a unique way are the ones who will have a chance to create a radically different market that others haven't even conceived. So how does digital technology influence the answer to this why question? Digital technology fundamentally changes, in many cases, our taken for granted assumptions about people, users, buyers, technologies, products, and markets and industries. The rapid deployment of artificial intelligence, ethics, and the meaning of work, and even the very meaning of intelligence and life are being challenged, through technology. The emergence of multi-sided platform changes who are the product, the producers, and who are the consumers. firms must understand their consumers not just as the buyers, but also as users, because digital tools allow these companies to continually communicate and monitor and interact with users long after they purchase the product. The integration of powerful sensors with AI algorithm challenges our perception of what is possible and what is not possible. It changes the very meaning of certain products, blurring the boundaries between product or even industries. Using ubiquitous smartphones and its speakers and microphone, for example, we can now detect the presence of COVID-19 viruses by simply listening to someone's voice while they're just talking over the phone, right? So such a technical capabilities that were not even possible, in healthcare, completely changes the way we think about diagnosis and treatment, and that can fundamentally change the very meaning of what healthcare service delivery means and how they should operate. So, even with such radically improved technology, if the leader of the organizations fail to ask the fundamental question of why, the firm is likely to fail to introduce radically innovative products and services and business models using digital tools. So, for example, many of the digital services that are popular are now based on questionable practices of privacy protection or very abusive labor policy with so-called temporary gig workers. Business leaders who find such conditions intolerable and equipped with a proper knowledge on digital technology to change those current conditions are likely to introduce much better and fair, far better and desirable digital services that can literally change the way we interact with the digital services. A company that can successfully answer the why questions is the one who can create new market. Apple was able to create new market of personal computers and iPhones and iPods, and by asking why should computers be only used for work by professionals. Steve Jobs asked, why can't ordinary people use computers for their everyday life experience? No one was asking that question. When he asked that question in early 80s and late 70s, most other industry leaders in the computer industry thought that he was crazy. He was just like working on toys. But history proves that Steve Jobs was right in asking those fundamental questions, like why we are not doing this right. By asking those questions of why, again and again, Steve Jobs and Apple created a new market after new market, right? From Mac to iPod to iPhone. But behind the simple and benign question lies Steve Jobs' deeper appreciation of the relationship between people and humanity and technology. His question is a reflection of his conviction that everyone has a right to live a creative life, and his belief that the technology is a tool not just for boring routine work, but for individuals' creativity. So for him, a world where the computers are just used for boring routine administrative work is simply unacceptable. So he went on and went out and reimagined the very meaning of computers, and then ended up creating a whole new market and eventually changed the world with the technology that he created, right? And then at the end, he created the most valuable company in human history. Now it is becoming almost $2 trillion in market cap. So when a leader is asking the question of why and begins to recognize the given situation as intolerable through the lens of digital technology, it is becoming the beginning of the most impactful and disruptive type of digital transformation. Digital technology alone cannot disrupt the world. It is only when the technology is combined with our ability to ask the question of why. So the answer to the question of why is directly related to what I call digital meaning architecture of the firm. Digital meaning architecture of a firm defines how digital assets of the company will affect who they are and why they exist. It is the moral compass of the company and pointing to the true north of the firm. Now, the second question is a question of what. Once a firm gains a clear understanding of why it is in the business and what is the intolerable situation that it is trying to change, the next question that it needs to ask is precisely what is the solution that it can create to change the situation for the better. The answer to the question is addressed within a confined space of a given market. And the answer to the question of why defines the market that you will be in, right? But the answer to the question of what will determine what kind of product you will introduce to the market that you decided to enter into. So Apple created a new market for smartphone by asking the question of why. Why does a phone cannot be connected to the internet all the times? And then Apple created its own answer to the what question, and that is iOS and iPhone. And then Google created its own answer to the what question, the same why answer, smartphone is why answer. And then it has Android and Pixel. And then Samsung had its own response to the what question, which is Galaxy. Now, at the end, they are all answering to the same question of what within the confinement of same why answer that they all share. So that's why they're in the same market, but competing with a different product. So digital technology, again, plays a very important role here. So digital technology allows a completely different design and engineering compared to what we could do with analog questions, analog technology. So take Tesla, for example. In a way, Tesla shares the same response to the question of why. Why do we need a car? Just like any other automotive companies, it is trying to provide a comfortable, individualistic, and stylistic mobility solution to take us from one location to another. And then the sleek design of Tesla's body shows a remarkable resemblance to a high-end sports cars or sports utility vehicles produced by the legacy companies, right? However, the resemblance is only skin deep. Tesla, behind the curvy sheet metal body, it is entirely built with a very complex array of digital technology consisting of sensors, AI algorithms, specialized microprocessors, and custom designed motors and batteries. It is often said a Tesla powertrain system has about 18 moving parts. Get this, 18 moving parts. And a typical internal combustion engine powertrain has hundreds, if not thousands, different moving parts. So in other words, it looks like a car, but it is not a car. The oldest model of Tesla Model S is more than 80 years old. However, Tesla has yet to introduce a facelift of the model. Have you seen any traditional automotive companies without introducing new facelift every year? This is unheard of. But why is Tesla able to do it? It's because Tesla's primary source of value creation is digital assets. It's not physical product, if you will. It needs to look good enough, but what is real is inside a car. That's something that we cannot see. That, in other words, Tesla is responding to the question of what with a very radically different solution using digital technology as its core asset. So a firm's ability to come up with a successful answer to the question of what depends on the firm's engineering and design ability. So while the question of what is not as disruptive as the question of why, which can create a whole new market, the question of what can also potentially completely reshape the competitive landscape of an existing market. So when done properly, an answer to what question with the digital tools would allow us to fundamentally change what I call a value proposition of their product. So the answer to the what question leads to digital value architecture. Digital value architecture of a firm defines how the firm creates and captures value using digital assets. It specifies what key assets it needs to utilize to create value. And with digital assets being the foundation of value creation, a firm can build a new value architecture that can potentially provide what I call network and learning and transformative and generative effects using the unique capabilities of digital tools. We don't have time to elaborate all these four different unique capabilities. But what is important here is that the capabilities allow the firm to create what I call digital value premium, where the value that is created from digital assets can enjoy an exponential growth as the size and then scale of the operation grow. So this is a fundamental aspect of the second question of what. Now let's take a look at the third question and the last question, the question of how. The question of how is the question about how we set up the operation. If the first question of why is the question about how to create a new market with the digital tools, digital assets, and if the second question of what is about creating new products in an existing market, the third question of how is about how we produce the digital solutions, the what, in a sustainable and scalable way. And the answer to this question is fundamentally about our organizational operational capability through process, structure, and technological infrastructures. So this is a question that many organizations ask all the time. I haven't seen an organization with good management who do not ask this question on an ongoing basis. Some even think that this is the only thing that matters when it comes to management. And then, unfortunately, this is many times how most organizations approach digital transformation. They think that we just need to ask how we could use digital technology to make our process and structure and technology infrastructure better. These organizations, how we do the same thing, that we've been always doing, but better, faster, cheaper by tools like AI and big data and IoT. Of course, there's nothing wrong with asking those questions. In fact, some of those approaches may be a meaningful place where you want to start your digital transformation journey. However, if that's the only thing that you do, then we have a problem. Digital transformation is a very expensive endeavor. By only focusing on how your firm can do the same thing in the same market with the same kind of product, just better, cheaper, faster, using digital technology, you probably will never enjoy the tremendous opportunities that digital technology can create in terms of new value that you can create with the same digital tools. Digital tools such as machine learning, wearable computers, and IoT and blockchain and all of that can be used to operate the organizations in a way that were not possible in the past. For example, due to COVID-19, many organizations are embracing virtual tools. For example, hospitals in the US have fundamentally altered the way that physicians are interacting with emergency patients. In this case, organizations can quickly use the digital tools to implement and produce the solution that they already have designed. Such an ability to answer the question of how with the digital tools depends on the firm's ability to change its process, structure, and underlying technology infrastructure. For example, this conference, the way we are operating, in a way is about the question of how. How should we run a conference? We didn't really fundamentally change what conference means and why we do conference here. So the question, answer to the question of how leads to what I call digital operational architecture. Digital operational architecture specifies how a firm can use digital technology to change its process, structure, and infrastructure. An important challenge that many organizations face is to avoid being stuck with the question of how with digital technology. It's okay to start with it. Even if you start with the question of how, the firms who are serious about digital transformation must find a way to elevate the question and discussion around digital transformation around what and eventually how. So for example, your digital transformation project can be about a small incremental improvement of what you're doing already. Right? So for example, it could be, let's replace our call center and let's create an app that users can solve their own problem directly using pure digital experiences. Now that is a question of how. It doesn't really change what you do, what you sell, and why you exist. But as you look for ways to make smartphone app to work, you may end up creating a whole new product, a whole product that is solely based on the digital experience on smartphone app. So now you have a new answer to the question of what. So you actually change the product itself. But as you continue to think about what this product means and who are the competitors that you're competing with, sometimes the use of such product, pure digital product in your industry may end up changing your relationship with your customer in the most fundamental way. You may actually end up entering into different market. You end up competing with other firms that you never thought about competing. Now you might be asking the question of why. So I will conclude where I began. A firm is a systematic, sustained, and organized effort to create and deliver solutions to change a given intolerable situation for the better. In doing so, all companies must ask three core questions: why, what, and how. The question of why will lead you to change the meaning architecture. The question of what will lead you to change your value architecture. And the question of how will lead you to change the operational architecture. And together, digital transformation is not just a technical exercise. Digital transformation is a true effort to re-architect the fundamental core DNA of your organization. The fundamental DNA of your organization has three architectures, like I said: meaning, value, and operational architecture. And those things can be discovered through why, what, and how. Now, this year's conference theme has three words: strategy, culture, and technology. And I think they are directly related to the three questions in a slightly different order. The culture is about value. It is about who we are. It is about why we're in the business. It enables us and help us to ask and answer the question of why. And then the strategy is fundamentally about how we make the choice of what to do and what not to do. That's what strategy do. And it is what enables us to ask and answer the question of what. And then finally, in the digital transformation, technology and technology infrastructure is fundamentally about how we do what we do, right? Through digital technology. So an important element in this light of this conference, and this is why we actually put this the content at the very end as a grand finale of the conference, is the Appreciative Inquiry. Some of you already know what Appreciative Inquiry is. Some of you probably never heard about it, or only heard about it but never have used it in your organization. It is a tool that was invented here at Red Hat School, and it is a very powerful tool to change your organization based on generative dialogues and the power of thinking about what you have already instead of what you do not have. And this is a session that will be led by Professor Ron Fry, who actually co-invented this method, Appreciative Inquiry. And you're going to learn how to ask these questions that I just went over, why, what, and how, using the powerful framework of Appreciative Inquiry. And you will learn how to engage in a generative dialogue in your organization right after the conference when you go back to your own organization as a way of jump-starting your digital transformation journey. It doesn't have to be complex strategic planning. It could begin by asking a set of simple but fundamental questions. So throughout this conference, we selected really interesting case studies that showcase how other legacy organizations are asking these questions and moving their digital transformation journey forward. We also have a great keynotes and really interesting panels. So more than anything else, quite frankly, personally, I really look forward to learning from these incredible sessions myself. And I'm sure that all of you will enjoy these sessions as well. I'll be around. I will pop in different sessions here and there. I'll try to ask questions and answer some of the questions that you may have. And I will see you on day 3 and day 4 on the stage with other speakers. So once again, thank you for joining this Digital Futures Conference 2020. I hope you will enjoy it. I guarantee you that you will get a lot out of it. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you.